Hello everyone, and welcome to our Talk and Play podcast. It's kind of like a podcast, but we do it while playing video games.
Yes, and today we'll be talking about death, the afterlife, and a bunch of whack-ass theories that we read that I can't even believe are a thing.
So, without further ado, let's blow your knowledge load.
Pew.
Okay. So I think the reason why we started talking about this is because I have an irrational fear of death.
Oh, I thought you were going to say erection. I have an erection?
I do.
Sorry, what?
No, I actually think about death every single night.
Well, that's morbid. Leo bees. Why?
I don't know.
One of these times you're not going to make it through that part.
I know. No, it's the fear of nothingness scares me. But yeah, we started talking about it over text message or whatever. And something that I had looked up and something that I brought up in that conversation.
Oh my god.
Was that I read something that said there's no reason to be scared of nothingness because that is essentially only one possibility out of an infinite number of possibilities that could happen. And so that kind of got our discussion rolling of what those possibilities can be.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like everybody has had a loved one or somebody close pass away at some point in their life. So everybody's had to deal with death at some point. And usually when that happens, then you start evaluating death for what it is. And I feel like that's when a lot of people start getting scared of it, is because they're like, what does happen after you die? And I feel like the reason it's so scary is because essentially it's a big question mark. Nobody can say it for sure. There's tons of different theories and beliefs. Like you look at Christianity, where we believe that there's a heaven and a hell. If you were good during your time on earth, then you're gonna go to heaven. If you were bad, you're gonna go to hell and live all eternity in pain and suffering. Awfully scary. But then we started looking at some other ones, and I mean, it's kind of crazy what other people believe. I mean, they might think that what we believe in is just as crazy too, I guess, obviously. But one of the funniest ones, I guess, was Rastafarians. What their deal is. I'm sure we all thought that they were just like cool, chill, smoking weed, love everybody. Not at all.
Not if you're white, apparently.
Oh, don't be white around them. So like, they're almost like black supremacists? I mean, I don't want to go and call them like racist or anything. I don't know what people who actually practice, Rasta, I don't know what the correct term for that is, but who practice that. I don't know what they actually do, whether they're really outright in like disliking white people. But one of their things was that they believed that heaven was in Ethiopia
and hell was Jamaica.
Yeah, they believed that if they were good on Earth or good during their life, that they would be reborn in Ethiopia. See, that one scares me more than anything. Yeah, if I had to be reborn into Ethiopia, I would be a little worried myself.
Probably
to be honest,
kill myself.
Well, it was like what we were reading. It's like you where they thought heaven on Earth was in Ethiopia, and where there's a 68% mortality rate.
And maybe the scripture that we were reading or whatever we were reading there is outdated or whatever. But
I don't know. Like I said, I've never heard of any of this before, so I don't know how true that stuff really is. So it's tough to say, and like what they might actually practice, right? But I thought that was kind of interesting to find that out about Rastafarians. That was interesting.
Yeah, well, that's one word for it.
Yeah.
There's a few that actually scare the crap out of me. And we were talking about this one specifically was the idea that... Look at him bounce.
Ugh.
The idea that we are living in a simulation, it's actually, a lot of scientists agree that it's a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about the simulation theory. I mean, like Elon Musk has talked about it, and he thinks that it's entirely possible. I don't know if I've ever heard Hawking talk about it. Maybe, but it's the idea where it's kind of like the Matrix, where we're all really just living in a simulation right now, and our real bodies are like out in some world. You know, our consciousness are just put into this simulation, and nothing that's actually happening here is real.
Yeah, and where that comes from, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, when they look at human life and how much we're going to technologically advance and destroy ourselves, the belief is that the only logical outcome for humanity to prosper is to put everyone's consciousness into a simulation, which is what they determined we would be now, because that's the only logical solution to the end of our life. And chances are, if we're thinking about that right now as a solution, that civilization before us already thought about it. But why it scares me is if we are in a simulation, and let's say we wake up out of that simulation in the real world, and this is just one simulation theory, is you put yourself into it and then you come out of it when you die, and then you instantly remember, like, in a matter of seconds, oh yeah, that was a simulation, this is my actual life. All of your loved ones and everyone that you've ever known never existed. And the life that you've lived and the people you've loved and your parents and your wife or your husband or whatever it's going to be, they were just a figment of programming. And that honestly scares the hell out of me more than Nothingness.
But at the same time, though, what's to say that you actually remember what happened in the simulation? What if you just wake up and it's like waking up from a dream and they're like, oh, you were in a simulation. You're like, oh, and you just don't remember anything. It's like a dream that you can't remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure I wouldn't care about it then, but thinking about that now, it's like, my God, is that sad? I don't know. I guess I'm a big softie, but
maybe too close to the
Or the other side of it, where you're in a simulation and you just kind of relive the same life consistently. Like we're all in a simulation together.
Our consciousness is just in a simulation, and you just keep reliving the simulation over and over again after you die.
Yeah. Because realistically, this is gonna sound really weird. I'm not stoned. I swear to God. How do I know you're real?
You don't.
I don't know what it feels like to be you. For all I know, this could be the Matrix, and I'm the only one who truly exists.
Oh, well, I'm pretty full of yourself, aren't you?
but you know what I mean? Like, it could be the same thing for you, where, I don't know, maybe you are a robot.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about the simulations. You have no idea what is actually going on, what's real and what's not, right?
Yeah, it's that is such a weird thing to me, and yeah, to know that this was all for nothing, and that the people I knew didn't exist, and
but I guess it probably wouldn't really matter to you if that was the case, right?
Like if it was the case where I wasn't gonna remember the simulation, then whatever.
Jabroni.
In a simulation aspect of it, the one that I could really get on board with,
fudge me, man,
was that we are all reliving our same lives over and over again. But even that's really screwed up, because what about the people that had terrible lives, or died really young, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, that would suck. I mean, unless it's just like infinite chances to relive as yourself, but the possibilities are kind of endless.
Yeah.
I mean, that could happen too. And I mean, so one of the theories that we read about was kind of the same as that, where like it's more along the lines of like the reincarnation, where like I think Buddhists and Hindu believe in reincarnation. I can't remember which one it was. Hindu maybe, where they believe that you're reincarnated 52 million times before being reincarnated as a human again.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like a never-ending cycle in that case.
Yeah.
So I mean, at that point, it's like, I don't know what point I was trying to make. That was just another thing we read, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Hindu, because Buddhists are, they believe that you'll be, reborn as a god, a deity, or a human or something else. And then, yeah, Hindus were, you'll be reincarnated 52 million times as anything until you become a human again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a part of that kind of...
What the flippin' dip?
Here's part of that kind of doesn't make sense to me, is that, okay, where do all the new souls come from then?
Like well, that's just, I would assume at that point it's just those are people being reincarnated.
But
every new baby is just somebody else that's now getting reincarnated.
But we have way more people on the earth now than we did, let's say, 200 years ago.
Yeah, but if that was the theory, they're also saying that all these other people are also being reincarnated as animals.
Yeah.
So it could just be people, that were animals that are now being reincarnated as people.
I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing, and for people that...
Well, it's interesting in the fact that there's so many different theories on what it is, and people believe in everybody believes in something different, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Some are definitely more pleasant than other possibilities, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I know there's people out there that say, "Well, I was fine before I was dead, so I'll be fine after," or before I was alive, so I'll be fine after.
And I mean, that also brings up the question of like ghosts, right? Because that's another thing. It's like, oh, is there life after death? Well, people who believe in ghosts, I mean, really, you would have to agree at that point that yes, there is life after death, because these people are still living as spirits.
Yeah.
And it's almost the same thing as like when we were talking. Don't. That's too low. That's too high. When people were talking about, or when we were talking about aliens before, right? And we were talking about, there being some stories that just seem like they really seem like they're real.
Yeah.
And then you hear ghost stories and unexplainable things where you're just like, that is just so convincing that it's hard not to believe it, right? Even my mom has ghost stories out the wazoo. So there's also kind of a theory out there that some people are more, I guess, attuned to ghosts and paranormal activity happening.
Yeah.
And my mom is one of those. She's had a bunch of unexplainable instances like that, I guess you could say, where like in the place that I was born, the house that we used to have there, Mom swears even to this day that we were haunted by a ghost. There was a ghost of a little girl that used to come, and Mom said she saw several times. All of a sudden in the middle of the night she'd wake up and she'd look at the door and this little girl was standing in the doorway.
That's something that you want to hear.
Yeah, right? I'm like, oh good, I'm glad we don't live there anymore. But it's like, this is my mom, I know her, I know she's not crazy.
Yeah.
And like she'd have no reason to make this stuff up. So it's, when you hear stuff like that, you're just like, ew, this person has no reason to lie to me. I don't think that she would.
Yeah.
I believe it. It kind of gives me chills just thinking about it.
Well, that was even our old place there.
That picture. Yeah, we showed people that before, right?
Yeah, the ghost picture from our house.
Yeah.
But there was weird stuff that happened in that place. But at the same time, I don't know. I'm one of those people, I have to see it to believe it.
You did see it.
I know. But even then, I was like, oh, well, the way the camera went off, like, could that have done something? Or, I don't know. I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes about ghosts and ghost stories and stuff. But the one thing that did creep me out was, in the theory of, there's something over there. What do you call it? Not reincarnation. Or yeah, reincarnation. So there was these video documentaries that were done of these kids that remember their past lives.
You're gonna have a hard time up there.
And when they...
That's too far. Oh, mamma mia.
When they remembered their past lives, these directors of this TV show took them to these places that they remembered, and sure as shit, there is the house that they were describing. There is the, and then they go back and the kid's like, oh, my name was John Smith, for example, or whatever. And he says, I lived in a house on the beach. It was a big white house. We had a dog. And then they go in the records like, yep, there was a Smith family that lived there for 30 years. Then the dad died. Then John Smith, the dad died in an accident. And they had a dog. And there you go.
Yeah, how do you explain that? I mean, unless it's kind of like bogus where, like, you know, they were coached to say that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Fudge me.
And
right in the fudge hole.
There's just been so many instances of kids remembering their past lives and all of these stories on them and videos on it that I just...
Or when you get like those, I mean, not quite along the same line, but you get those kids who like see ghosts and stuff, and it's creepy, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I was just talking to Grandpa. It's like, whoa, well, Grandpa died, great. Grandpa died, you know, however many years ago, and you've never met him before. It's like, oh, well, he looks like this, and he told me this, and then they're like, oh, that is creepy AF, because that is exactly the description of your grandpa. That's something that he would say.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how... I don't know how to explain things like that.
No,
I really don't. There you go. So yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you guys think about it? Like, as far as ghosts and the afterlife, I mean, obviously a lot of people's view on the afterlife comes from religion, right? Like a lot of these views are religions. Mm-hmm. So that's where probably a lot of people, what they believe in would most likely be based on their religion. And if it's, you know, if you're not a religious person, a lot of your, like, the theories and stuff you believe in are probably, their roots are based in a religion. You know, whether Ethiopia is your heaven and you're gonna 68% chance that you're gonna die of childbirth.
I'm sorry to laugh, but that was something else.
That was something. That was something. There you go.
Perfect. Dunk. Dunk. As somebody that's not...
Just jump on this thing and then throw it.
As somebody that's not overly religious, I think that is why death bothers me so much. Is because the concept of nothingness just... I can't fathom not being something.
Yeah.
And, you know, in thinking about, you know, loved ones not being anything after they die, or when you leave this earth, when you die, that you are just worm food.
Yeah. Well, just the thought of everything we're doing now having no meaning, I just don't think that anybody would want to accept that.
No.
Like, everything that we're doing has no meaning because after you die, it's nothing. Like, that, I just don't think that it's in human nature to accept that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. Why would you want to think that that everything you're doing now is just like that? That's all there is. You get your, you know, 60, 80 years on Earth, and then after that, that's it.
In terms of... I'm sure I know what your best outcome for life is, like, or of the afterlife is, and that's probably related to heaven, right?
Yeah.
I think my best one, in my opinion, is...
No! Why did you get stunned like that?
Is a simulation where we're just going to continually relive this life. Because I've had a pretty good life. Mm-hmm. And if this is my forever, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we should end it here.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys let us know what you think.
What's your optimal ending? If you had to believe in anything that we talked about here today, do you want to end up in Ethiopia? Do you want to relive your life? Do you want to be reborn as a chipmunk, or do you want to go to heaven?
Yeah. And if you have any ghost stories, I mean, I think we've asked for ghost stories before, but I can never get enough of ghost stories. I don't know why. I just find it interesting. Let me know what your ghost stories are. And we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.